Alright, today I'm going to do a little trimming on this dwarf black olive. Just give you an idea of kind of how overgrown it's gotten. Now you just got to let them grow so it keeps the vigor in the tree. But then, after you've done that, you have to do a little pruning to reestablish your lines and kind of rein the tree in a little bit so it's not just going wherever it wants. Alright, let's see how this goes. So anytime you're doing this, the first thing you're going to look for is branches that are growing straight up. Now this one tends to have several because it'll shoot up and then it'll spread out. This does have a nice little pattern. When it branches out, it tends to zigzag anyway. So when you're pruning it back, you can kind of keep that in mind. And also keep in mind it's going to have some that shoot up. And also at any intersection, it tends to have other branches as well. But the main idea we're trying to do is just get our silhouette here. Been watching several different people and their different techniques, and one of the ones I like, he can just been doing it for a long time, but his thought process is you have your silhouette and then you work from your silhouette, selecting branches after the fact. And I tend to agree with that. It has gotten me into a few issues over the years because sometimes I take off the wrong branch doing the silhouette when I could wire it into something. But in reality, I can grow another branch to replace. As long as I still have the tree, I can get back to where I need to be. Now the other thing that you want to try to avoid as much as possible is having the branches stacked, basically. If they don't have sunlight for extended periods of time, eventually you lose the leaves, and then eventually the branch. Now you can thin it out, and that helps some, but eventually you'll have to make some changes. Right now I'm just taking off some of the ones that are just knotted up because you want to see more of your branches, and these tend to just take away from that. It's just where new growth is trying to grow straight up, which really isn't a desirable trait anyway. And this is a dwarf black olive. At least that's what I've been told. And this one does have a few little seed pods on it. I'm just going to leave them for the hell of it. But the biggest thing when you're pruning a branch back is you have to think into the future. You can't think about just what looks good now. Some people will get into that mindset of, oh, well, I want the tree to look like this, not realizing and remembering that bonsai is a ever-changing art. You have to have branches in place to replace other branches as the tree develops out. And if you don't allow for some back branching and you just continually work the same branches, then eventually you're going to run out of options. And if I ever get good at these videos, I'll be able to speed up some of this. You won't have to watch 20 minutes of me talking as I manipulate some branches or cut some branches. But what I'm really going for here, I'm trying to open it up so you can see more of the lines. I need to do a little cleaning on this tree. Got some build up. I'll just brush it later. You can use a variety of things to do that. Toothbrush works for me. And the idea here is just to open up the branches. It'll help too with them getting mold buildup or gunk built up on the trunk. When daylight can get in there, it doesn't have as much opportunity to develop as much funky stuff. But they are staying a little damp right now, just because of it being summer and the tendency for it to get hotter than hell, and just trying to keep the tree's vigor. What I'm working on here is I'm just doing a little bit of trimming on this. I'm going to thin this out a little, right in through here. Just take some of these extras off. I'm going to leave this branch because I want to develop something coming down. When I talk about the branches running and kind of hopefully what you can see, eventually this part of the branch will come off. Probably back to here, and I might even do that today. I haven't really decided. But having this length allows for the branch to thicken a little, and since it is my first branch, I kind of want that. The nice part about these is you can get some really, kind of nice pad development with very little effort. You can get nice lines because these trees tend to do it themselves. And you just kind of, a lot of them, the bonsais I've seen over the years and the ones I enjoy really have some funky movements, and they kind of zigzag a lot. And this tree will do that naturally. So you can really have some fun with this tree. And the leaves are small, so it really leans itself towards bonsai. And then I'm just continuing to back up branches. It's got a lot of new growth on it. Just trying to keep in mind that I want separation between the branches. I don't want um, a lot of branching in the um, intersections. So in between where the trees split, this tree in particular um, tends to develop additional greenery and like right here, um, here, here, and you want to kind of avoid that where you can. And it's not real hard. You just nip it off. And then you get more line in the line movement in the tree. Um, and the cow gets to say hi. I don't see them out too often. It's pretty cool. Um, just continuing to nip back, open it up. It's not necessarily a fast process, and sometimes it can be tedious. And when you wire out a tree, in addition to doing that, you still want to prune back. Not necessarily if you've already done it heavily, um, but if I was going to wire this tree out, I would want to have my main branches already decided. Now, I have seen it where, and I think it was purely for the experience of wiring, teachers had the people wire the whole tree out and then end up taking off a bunch of the branches. So, rather than doing all that extra work for nothing, I like to be able to have an idea of where I'm going to go, and then when I wire it, I don't have to wire unnecessary branches. This is really developed nicely. I'm going to try and keep this as short and sweet as possible. But the reality is, I can only cut so fast. And my buddy that I enjoy, he cuts real fast for the silhouettes, but then you have to be selective when you're pruning for your branching and for your taper. Because you really want to make sure you're not cutting off something you need. When you're cutting back for silhouette, it's one thing because you can kind of go along with a little speed because you know you're working a basic silhouette, what you want the tree to be, and then you can go from there. But in essence, I'm just bringing it back to a zigzag and trying my best to not leave it where everything's a straight shot. Most bonsais have nice movement, and sometimes with this particular one, when you do bring it back, you can end up with less of that enjoyable zigzagging and more of a straight shot. But once again, I'm working to open up, working to make sure that branches aren't crisscrossing. Um, Sometimes it can be pretty cool when you get a right setup for that. Um, Watching how they'll develop, but if it gets to a point where they are growing over one another, then you start losing your branch structure and potentially losing branches that you might actually want to hold on to. So, alright, just got a couple of these little intersection guys that need to come off. Give you some elevator music. Alright. And sometimes what we end up doing is just kind of going in and just hand plucking some of the bigger leaves. You just have to be careful with this method. Sometimes you can tear the trunk, especially on more fragile trees, or rip the bark off the tree, which kind of sucks. So ideally, a bonsai would have a triangular, whether it be an elongated triangle or a standard triangle, a right angle, a left angle, really doesn't matter. You just try to go for somewhat of that in your silhouette. It can be from the top down. It can be shaped from the sides. But that's just kind of a styling choice. Everybody's gonna do what looks best to them, and kind of what it's about. It's an art form, and you want to do what works and resonates with you, but also what works and resonates with the tree. So some trees aren't going to be manipulated as easy as others. Almost all trees can be bonsai'd. However, not all trees look good as bonsai. Some of them require the tree be a lot bigger because the leaves take a long time to dwarf, and others are too watery. Tried a lot of different things over the years. Alright. I'm getting close to finished here. And then I'm just gonna take a little time and clean this up. But I just wanted to share this little video and see. Somebody's wanting to play with bonsai and understand a little bit more. I hope it helps. I'm going to go ahead and take this off because I'm losing my silhouette. And keep in mind, I'm pruning this back so it can grow out again. Seems kind of ironic, but in doing that, they develop larger branches. Um, they have more room to grow. Tree gets more light, kind of reinvigorates it to grow. And when they're contained in a pot like this, it helps slow down some of the development of the tree. All right. I'm gonna bring you to this side to kind of see the triangle, and then so we got, and you can see now a lot more of the structure of the tree. Originally, this was in a pot when I bought it as a pre-bonsai with another tree, and this was growing straight up. The other tree was growing like this. When I repotted it, I potted it at the angle. I took off a lot of the top of this tree and brought it down. What's developing here will eventually try to take over as the top, but we're continuing to work through this movement, and I'm going to clean this up. But get a little bit of an idea of the triangle from that angle. So I hope it helps. I hope you enjoyed the endless talking, elevator music, and thanks.